Hey, I'm Sarah, and this is the Goddess in Training podcast. This isn't about being perfect or polished or having it all figured out. This is about what happens when you actually start listening to your body, your intuition, your patterns, your truth. I'm asking big questions and having real conversations, sometimes messy and sometimes magical, with people who've lived through it, grown through it, and still don't have all the answers. If you've ever doubted yourself, betrayed your gut, or wondered if you're the only one, you're not. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to another episode of Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and today's conversation is a special one for me because I'm joined by someone I've known for a long time, my friend, Princess Rara. We go way back to my days in the Kink scene in Northern Virginia, a chapter of my life that deeply shaped how I understand trust, intuition, embodiment, and consent. Rara isn't just a princess, she's very much a goddess in her own right. She's the co-host of the globally ranked podcast Kink, which is in the top 1.5% worldwide and reaches listeners across more than 170 countries. With over a decade in the kink world and nearly 30 years of lived and professional experience between her and her co-host, Rara brings an incredible blend of wisdom, humor, and grounded education to everything she does. In this conversation, we talk about kink not as shock value, but as a space of play, creativity, chosen family, and profound connection. We explore informed consent, intuition, fear, aftercare, community, and why listening to your gut in kink and in life is non-negotiable. We also talk about joy, aging, feminine and masculine energy, and what it really means to redefine success when life doesn't go according to plan. This episode is honest, expansive, and surprisingly tender. Whether kink is familiar territory for you or completely new, there's so much here about trust, self-advocacy, and learning how to stay connected to your inner knowing. I'm grateful to share this conversation with you. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and today I am joined by my friend, Princess Rara, and we have known each other, I'm not going to say for how long, but it's been a while, and back from the days when I was in the kink scene in Northern Virginia, and Rara is not just a princess, but she is also a goddess. And so I am so excited to talk with you today.
I'm so excited to be here. Really, we used to see each other all the time at different events and stuff, and it's been forever. So first, I'm so glad to see you and get a chance to catch up, but also to be here on the podcast.
Rara has a podcast herself called Kink. So definitely go check that out. Tell me a little bit about how that started. What gave you the idea of creating the Kink podcast?
Well, I had listened to other kink podcasts because I had quite the commute. You know, for those who live in the DC area or know of the DC area, the commute is not fun. And this was pre-COVID, so it was really bad. And so I would find podcasts to listen to. And as I was listening to these podcasts, they were great and the hosts were wonderful. But the way they did kink was very, very different than the way that me and my friends were doing kink. Most of it was between established DS couples. A lot of it was done at home, not necessarily in the dungeon. And here I was doing completely platonic kink. My friends and I were going to the dungeon to do kink like other friend groups go out to the movies or go bowling. And we were doing like every weekend, we were either at the dungeon or a private house party. And so I wanted to be able to showcase that and talk about that. Because I had a lot of friends who were like, I want to do kink, but I don't have a partner. I'm not in a dynamic. And I'm like, well, you can do it anyway. You don't need that. You just need a friend who knows what they're doing. So I decided I wanted to just share my way of doing kink, and that's where it all started.
So how long have you been in the kink world, and how do you identify it? Tell the listeners what sorts of play you do.
Right. So I've been in the kink world about 10 and a half years at this point. I started out as a submissive, but now I look back and I joke that I cosplayed a submissive because there really wasn't anything submissive about me. And I eventually became just a bottom. And then I had friends who were like, you should really learn how to top. And I went, okay. So then I became a switch. And then I decided I really wanted to explore my dominant side. So now I identify as a dominant who also likes to bottom because still haven't given up the fun of that. Right now, my areas of specialty are impact and sharps, which includes needles and staples. That's really what I focus on as a top. As a bottom, I have done goodness, just about everything. I've done wax, I've done electro, I've done sutures, I've done fire, I've done vac beds. I mean, just about everything.
So some of my listeners might be hearing what you're saying and being like, whoa, what is all of this stuff? And I think the question that might come up is, why would somebody engage in this kind of play? What would be your answer to that?
Well, of course, it's very individual. And if you ask 10 Kingsters, you'll probably get 10 different answers. For me, it's twofold. It's a way to connect with people and a really deep level. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of trust. Somebody is letting me put needles into their skin, or somebody is letting me literally hit them with a cane. And they are completely trusting that I'm not going to damage them or harm them. And that's pretty amazing. And watching people get their needs met and knowing I help them do that, it's an incredible connection. The same thing, it's also a challenge. I like to challenge myself. I used to be a runner. I used to run 5 miles every day. I love running. Running does not love me. And the body just could not keep doing it. So I had to find other ways to kind of get that endorphin high. And Kink does that for me. I get the same kind of runner's high that I used to get when I was running. And I like to also challenge myself. So if I did something one day, the next time can I do a little bit more? It's like you ask people, well, why are you climbing mountains? Like, you don't have to. And it's like, well, they like the challenge. They like seeing what they can do and pushing their body. And for me, that's a lot of what Kink does.
That resonates so much with me. And I think hits on a lot of the themes that we talk about on this podcast about trust and intuition and surrender. But also, the thing that struck me in what you just said too about the challenge is I saw so much creativity in the kink world that people could really create scenes, create situations that nobody has ever thought of before. You're creating something from nothing with strangers or people that you know. What are some memorable scenes that you have created?
Well, I just had one recently in September for my birthday. We decided, me and two needle top friends, that I was going to bottom for 400 needles, which is crazy enough as it is, but we decided to turn it into a speed contest. So I had um, a needle top on each side, and then each needle top had an assistant who helped them open up the needles. And then I was holding a pink rubber chicken. And I would say, on your mark, get set, go. And the tops would start putting the needles in me. And then I would squawk the chicken, and everybody had to stop and throw their hands up. And whoever threw their hands up last lost and got a punishment, which was a spanking. And then we would start again. Now, that was fun enough itself, but because we were starting with the needles on my breasts and my arms, I could not move my upper half. So for the first 2/3 of it, I literally had the chicken between my thighs, and I would squawk the chicken with my thighs. And so it just turned into, and we did this in the center of Crucible, right? They cordoned off the area, and literally the dungeon stopped playing. There were very few scenes happening, and everybody was sitting down and watching. And it was so much fun, and there was so much laughter because the guy who was doing the spanking and the person who ended up getting one top got spanked a little bit more than the other. They're theater kids, so they turned it into this whole big production, and it was just so much fun.
That sounds so amazing. And even if I wasn't playing, I mean, that was the kind of thing that I just loved to participate in the king scene because as adults, we do not play. And that was
Exactly.
just foundational to the king scene. And I feel like kinksters stay young so much longer than the general population. Do you see that as well?
Well, considering I just turned 60, yes. Yes.
No way. Oh my gosh. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Wow. So, yes, 100% kinksters stay young. So, before you got into the kink scene and since you've been in the kink scene, what kinds of differences do you see in yourself and feel in your body and beyond feeling young because you're playing so much?
Um, I have found a family in the kink scene. Prior to joining it, I have, a very complicated relationship with my family, as I like to call it. We're not no contact, but we're low contact, and I had a marriage that was falling apart, and I was feeling very alone. I do not feel alone anymore. I feel I have my people, and they're around me, and I'm never alone. If I wanna go out and do something, there's always somebody who's available if I need help. I mean, I've had friends take off work to be my person, like, if I was having a minor surgery, to take me to the hospital and to be there and wait for me and bring me back home and then run and get my medicine and amazing things like that were just friends. So I can't really fully describe how amazing it feels to have a group of people that like your chosen family. So that's probably the biggest thing. The second biggest thing is that there's freedom. I always knew I was slightly different. I didn't know why. I mean, I was the person who was very comfortable talking about sex. I was the person who had zero modesty, like being naked. I'm like, it's just a naked body. And for some of us, have the same thing, just different sizes. And so having that freedom now of going, oh, okay, here's a bunch of other people who are very comfortable talking about sex or very open about it or having, they're naked and they don't think twice about it. And so that's that freedom to just be me and not constantly have to think about, "Oh, is this group okay if I start talking about sex or not?" I enjoy that very much.
One other thing that you made me think of is just how diverse, at least in the DC area and other kink scenes that I've been in as well, is like we get together for things called munches, which is just having dinner with a group of people. And so often other people in the restaurant would kind of be like looking at the group, wondering what's the commonality between all of these people because it's just so incredibly diverse in terms of age, in terms of gender identity, in terms of race. How has that been for you just to be around so many different kinds of people?
Well, always say I grew up very white, and so being able to be around people who look different than me and who are, bless their hearts, willing to sit down and talk with me and help teach me and answer my questions. Because it wasn't that I was prejudiced, I was just ignorant. And so being able to have my eyes opened has been quite an amazing experience.
That's beautiful. And I would say, too, for the most part, people in the kink scene are not only open about bodies, but just open about everything and curious. It's a curious kind of person who is open to learning all different kinds of things inside the kink scene, outside the kink scene. I found so much value in that as well.
I think it's amazing. I made a friend who was transgender and she sat down with me and was willing to talk to me about it and answer questions. I have friends who identify as non binary. I'm like, help me understand it, explain it to me. And they're like, sure. And, as long as I'm coming at it from a respectful standpoint of, I'm not grilling you so you could justify it. I want to know about you and I want to know about your life and your issues. So, first of all, maybe I can help you. Second of all, so I don't add to them. Right.
Right.
And so
Right.
I've been very blessed in that aspect too.
For me, so much of what I learned in the kink scene about myself, one of the things that I played with so much in the different activities that I engaged in was playing with fear. Whether you're being tied up or using needles, there's this sense of harm that could be done, right? And so, what role has fear played in your life before being in the kink scene and now that you've been in the kink scene for a long time?
Yeah. Fear is not a big thing for me. I'm one of those people who's like, fuck it, let's try it. What's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work, learn something and I won't do it again. And if it worked, yay me, go for it. Oh, I really that hasn't been an issue. I'm very careful with who I play with. Like I might do crazy things, but I'm really careful with who I do those crazy things with. So people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're such a risk taker." I'm like, Not really. I mean, I know it looks like it, but since I'm so careful with who I play with and I make sure that they know what they're doing and we're taking every precaution, it's not as risky as you might think.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been afraid, to be honest.
And there's so many safeguards put into place. Talk a little bit about what consent looks like in the kink scene and what a dungeon environment is with dungeon monitors and people who are there specifically to take care of the people who are there.
So when we talk about consent when it comes to kink, we like to kind of expand that for it to be informed consent. Because you could say to me, hey, let's do an impact scene. And I'll say, sure. But you don't mention to me that the impact scene is with a paddle that has spikes on it that are going to break my skin and make me bleed. So did I really give consent because I didn't know that? So we talk about informed consent where you have to sit down and talk about exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. Are there risks involved? What are we doing to minimize those risks? What safety precautions are you putting in place, right? So when I'm doing, let's say, needles, are you making sure that you are following bloodborne pathogen protocols so that I don't have to worry about an infection? If you're doing impact, do you understand where the safe zones are to hit me or not hit me? If we're doing rope, where's your safety shears? Because they need to be right on you. Just having them over to the side is not sufficient. So you want to make sure that you've really got all the information so that when you consent, you know what's going to happen. Then we have what we call safe words, which is an ability to stop the scene at any time for any reason. Now, you ask different kicksters and they're going to have different ideas of what this is. A lot of us just use the traffic light system, which means green, we're good, keep going. Yellow, whoa, hold on a minute, slow down, we have an issue, let's check in. Or red, we're done, stop, completely stop. There's also what we call plain language, which is things like no, don't, stop. Some people don't consider plain language safe words. Some people do consider plain language safe words. So you might hear somebody say, I don't play with safe words. And what they really mean is, we don't need any fancy thing. If I just say no, that's sufficient. So when I'm negotiating with somebody, I want to make sure that communication is clear. So I always say, I will respond to both safe words like the traffic light system and plain language. But there's also different body cues, right? If you're watching your partner, you can see maybe they're kind of grimacing or moving to the side and you want to check in with them. If you're in a loud dungeon, you maybe give them like a squeaky ball toy that they can drop, squeak or drop. And that's also a way to notify your partner because communication is everything. So that's really what you need for consent. You need to have the ability to stop it as well. That's important. And consent goes both ways. Everybody talks about like the submissive and the bottoms consent. It also goes the doms and the tops. They are not required to do something that they don't want to. They are not required to go against their limits. And speaking of limits, you're going to hear people talk about hard and soft limits. Hard limits are those things you are not going to do. Period. End of story. It ain't happening. Soft limits are those things maybe they might happen under the right circumstances, on the right day, with the right partner, if I'm feeling it. Those you can push a little bit, but hard limits should not be pushed at all. You mentioned dungeons. So dungeons are basically just places where you get together to do kink, where there's kink equipment. A well-run dungeon should have dungeon monitors or DMs. And those are people who are not playing. Their only job is literally to walk around the dungeon, watch what everybody's doing, look for problems, and be able to jump in at any time if there's an issue. In most public dungeons, they have a dungeon safe word. So, like our local dungeon, the safe word is safe word. So if somebody yells out safe word, that tells the dungeon monitors, help, there's an emergency, come over here. So you want to make sure private parties might not have dungeon monitors, but public dungeons definitely do. And you're going to see just about anything and everything in a dungeon. Impact, electro, sharps, pet play, littles. Now, some states have rules you cannot have full nudity or penetrative sex. Some places allow it. It's just very different because it depends upon the laws of that particular state of what there is. Our dungeons allow anything and everything. Some dungeons may not allow any type of blood play. So needles wouldn't be allowed or anything like that. It just really depends on the place. You just have to go into a dungeon before you go, reach out to them, find out what is and isn't allowed so you know what to expect. Because you're going to go in and see things that you're kind of like, ew, I wouldn't do that. And that's fine. What you can't do is actually say, ew, right? Right? You want to pretty much just kind of walk away and avert your eyes and not look. My co-host doesn't do blood, so she stays far, far away from the medical play area because, we don't kink shame. So she just avoids it so she doesn't have to worry about it.
I love at the Crucible in DC, they have something called Dungeon 101 night. They're still doing those, right? Where people can
Yes.
come and kind of get a taste of all of the different things that you might see in the dungeon and learn and ask questions and try things. The lights are on and in a really kind of open, exploratory way.
Yeah. I highly recommend if your local dungeon has anything like that, that you go to it. Our Dungeon 101, for 2 hours, the lights are on and they're just talking to you and they're going over dungeon etiquette and safety protocols and how to do certain things in the dungeon. Then they have different stations where you'll have different people who have their toys. They're kind of like experts in that particular kink, and they will show you and answer your questions about it. And that happens for an hour. And then at that point, then the lights go on and playtime happens.
So you talk a lot about physical safety and those kinds of things that you can talk through beforehand. But my experience in the kink scene, there's so much when you're engaging with another person, whether you know them well or not, that you don't know, that there aren't questions that will reveal everything. For example, say you're doing a needle scene for the first time and you get that huge rush of adrenaline you get. Some people might then be surprised by what their body and what they're feeling and not be able to process it. Or I've seen a lot of people in the kink scene who, whether consciously or unconsciously, are working through trauma that they've had in their past. For example, some kind of assault, and they want to try to process that assault that's happened in the past by doing it in a controlled setting to desensitize themselves, to retrain their brain. Talk a little bit about that and how people can have these conversations, or if you're in a scene and something starts coming up as an experienced top, how you manage situations like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we talk about vetting your partner is so crucial. If you're new at something, I don't necessarily recommend you play with somebody who's new. Try to find somebody who's got a little bit more experience so that if something pops up, you're prepared. I am a house top at Crucible for an event where I spend the night and I just hang out in the medical play area and people come to me and I do needles on them. And I get a lot of people who are brand new. And so we go over what you might feel, what to expect, because I'm experienced. And that's really helpful to them. And then if something does happen, as I said, it's that informed consent. If they don't know that these things are a possibility, then that may be a problem, right? I mean, I will ask, do you faint at the sight of blood? They're like, no. But I've had people who kind of got a little woozy. And so I immediately lie them down and I reassure them and I tell them it's okay. Just however long you need to lay here, it's fine. You can have a trigger where a sound, something sets you off, and having somebody with you who's experienced, who can kind of calm you down and see how you're doing is really an amazing thing. If you are going to play two newbies play together, I would really start with some easy basic stuff, right? Like maybe very light impact. Things like needles, electro, rope, those are not 101 kinks.
Mhm.
Those are not even 201 kinks. I would put those at 301. So you're going to want to work your way up to it. Find a class to take. Listen to a podcast about kink, read a book. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can find to kind of educate yourself. I definitely recommend before you even start doing things, figure yourself out, know yourself, know what scares you, what doesn't. To the best of your ability, do you have any triggers, certain words that you don't want to hear? And have that together. We do what's called a BDSM checklist where you can literally go through and select the things you're willing to try and the things you're not. And in fact, if anybody's interested, if you go to my website, pinkkinkpodcast.com, to what we call the Pink Hub, there's several different documents in there. And one of the documents you can download for free is a BDSM checklist.
That's amazing because there's so much that you don't know that you wouldn't think of going into the kink scene. I definitely, when went to my first Dungeon 101, I walked around the room and I was like, this is all crazy. I am never doing that. I'm never doing that. I'm never doing that. And then guess what? A month or two later, I had done all of those things because it's fun. You start realizing trying new things is fun and you learn so much about yourself and you get those connections with people. I work a lot with plant medicine and you go on a journey and you get so much information. And I feel like having a scene in kink is very similar in the sense that you can have all of these feelings come up. You can learn these things about yourself, learn these things about your partner, and it requires a level of integration after the fact. And so, talk a little bit about what aftercare can look like when you've been doing a scene with somebody, and then how people go through processing the kinds of things that might come up during the scene.
Yeah. So aftercare is basically anything that you do after the scene to kind of help return yourself back to baseline. Because when you've done the scene, your endorphins and other lovely dopamine and other chemicals just go crazy. And that's what's fun about it. And you want to kind of come down and go back to your baseline. And so for some people, aftercare could be just cuddling or a certain food. You want to have some chocolate or, I mean, aftercare could even be sex so that you're connecting further with your partner. I had a friend, her aftercare was to go smoke a cigarette. Like, that's it. Some people, their aftercare is, I need to go sit in a corner by myself and just kind of process, leave me alone. And then you do a lot of talking. I always recommend people debrief after a scene, talk about what worked, what didn't. Did it meet your expectations? Because you go into a scene expecting it to go a certain way. Did it go that way you wanted? Did it go a different way? And if it went a different way, are you okay with the fact that it went a different way? I mean, my scenes are always lighthearted and playful, and there's a lot of giggling and stuff with it. And I did a scene with one of my regular bottoms that turned into, we started off light and playful, and then she started getting more quiet and more quiet. And I realized it was turning into a cathartic scene instead. And so when the scene was done and I wrapped her up in the blanket and I sat with her, she started crying.
Mm.
But it was like, it was a good cry because it was just like letting everything out. So we talked about it. Like, this isn't our normal scene. Are you okay with the fact that it ended up this way? She's like, yeah, I didn't realize that I had all this stress and pressure that I needed to get out. And the fact that I could was an amazing, wonderful thing. So we weren't upset that it happened, but maybe a scene went wrong and you're like, I didn't like how that went. And you need to talk about it and debrief. And sometimes the debriefing can happen right after a scene. Sometimes you need time alone to process what happened and you plan to meet the next day to talk about it. Or if it's a partner you live with, okay, we're going to talk about it later, the next day after breakfast. And everybody processes it differently. I I personally don't get that deep. It's not for me, the stuff that I do, it's just not that deep. It's fun and it's playful and I like it. And I always joke I can cry at the drop of a hat. So I get that all out of me. I mean, every time I watch K-pop Demon Hunters and she starts singing, this is what that sounds like, I'm crying. So I don't need the scenes to be cathartic and get those out. So they're just so fun and lightheaded. Now, if something goes wrong, then yes, I want to sit with them and talk about what happened, how did it go wrong, and what can we do for next time. And then as the top, I kind of go with what my bottom needs. I let their needs lead what's going to happen. But I always recommend debriefing afterward to talk about it and you can take notes. How'd we do? Should we do better next time? Especially if you're trying something new. Oh, yeah, I really like that. Let's do it again. Or, no, it didn't go the way I wanted. We don't have to try that again.
Playing with a lot of different tops in my past, I would say that one mark of a really good top is somebody who is really in touch with their intuition and who can read people's energy and body language. And I think you're definitely that way. Is that something? that has strengthened in your journey as a top, where you're more able to, yeah, to
Yeah,
see those clues?
definitely. And it's interesting because, right, as I said, I play with a lot of newbies. So, or at least they're new to me. And my thing with them is always, I don't know you. This is our first time playing together. So your body language, I don't know. If you if you kind of like stand up straight and kind of get up on your toes, I don't know, are you just processing the pain or is there a problem? So I'm going to check in with you. So I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'm going to say to you a lot during our scene, are you okay? Give me a color, whatever. Way more than I do with my regular partners. Like I joke with my regular partners, fuck is not a safe word.
Mm-hmm.
But with somebody who's new that I haven't played with before, if they say fuck, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and check in with them
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not a mind reader. I can only do so much. But one of the things I do is I very much try to watch that body language because if they're new, maybe they're afraid to say something to me. Maybe they're scared. I've had people play with me who are like, well, you're a sadist, but I'm not a masochist. So I haven't asked you to do a scene because I'm worried about it. And I said, okay, I don't have to do a sadistic scene every time. It's only fun for me if it's fun for you. If you just want a nice, gentle, sensual scene, then that's what we're going to do. So I really have to pay attention to body language. And I've gotten better and better at it. I think it's a skill I keep working on because why not? I tell people I'm not a mind reader, so you have to tell me. But I also understand people are afraid to.
Mm-hmm.
Telling somebody what you want and need is kind of scary. Getting it and then deciding, oh, it's not really what I like, then you're afraid to say something because, oh, I told them I wanted to do this. Or, apparently I'm scary. I'm intimidating and scary to people. I don't know why I'm all of 5 foot nothing and I'm wearing pink and sparkles. But people are, I mean, must be my reputation, whatever. So people are sometimes afraid to say something to me. And I'm like, please do. I promise I don't bite. And I always
Somebody
tell,
asked me to.
right? Even then, I'm not a biter. I'm a scratcher. I will
Yeah.
scratch. I tell people I will be more upset if you don't use a safe word than I will be if you use a safe word and we have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I always remind people who are new that that's what's going to be. And then I'm also very careful, even if they say more, do more, let's go harder. I'm like, that's not happening in this scene. We're too new to each other. We'll save that for next time. I'm just getting a feel for you. You're just getting a feel for me. And we'll go from there.
I've written on my Substack a little bit about my experiences in the kink world. And one thing that I was reflecting on is that I had experiences, even in fun scenes like what you do, where they're lighthearted. There's this level of connection in the moment that can feel really, really profound. And I admit that in the past, I have misinterpreted that connection to be something stronger than it actually is, or that it wasn't necessarily mutual, that it's only in this moment. Has that happened to you? And how do you navigate that kind of dynamic if somebody is like, oh, Princess Rara, like I felt this strong, strong connection with you. I want to keep talking to you. And you're like, ooh, that was just a thing in the moment.
Yeah. I haven't had it to an extreme. I mean, I've had some people who were like, "Oh my God, that was amazing. You were fantastic." And it's just like a little overboard. And then the praise is a little too profuse and it gets to be like a little uncomfortable. And they're like, "Oh, you've never made me feel this way. I can't believe this." I, I just, I just kind of like, physically take a step back. So there is physical space between us. And I just talk to them and I'm like, "Oh, that's great." And you kind of get really good at kind of stopping conversations and saying, "Oh, well, this is wonderful. You good? All right. I gotta go. I gotta be over here, or I've got somebody on my sign-up sheet who's coming next." And I don't want to do it in a way to make them feel bad because it's not like they did it on purpose. They just had an amazing moment. And sometimes it's an epiphany, like, "Oh my God, I love this. This is fantastic." And I don't want to downplay that. And I don't want to make them feel any shame for how they feel. So it is a fine line you kind of walk.
On this podcast, we talk a lot about divine masculine, divine feminine energy, which resides in all of us in different balances, right? And has nothing to do with being a man, being a woman. But I think that traditionally a top and the activities you're engaging in as a top are definitely more masculine energy. It's the logical, it's the planning, it's that it's those that kind of energy that you're putting into a scene. Whereas being a bottom, which is what I am, is more submissive and soft and receiving rather than giving. How are those two energies balanced in you? And being such a feminine goddess that you are and balancing by being pink and sparkly, but also sitting so much in that masculine energy as a top, does that all balance out for you?
Well, I still bring in a lot of feminine energy even when I'm topping because I care for my bottom and I want to give them the best experience possible. I get a lot of happiness and fulfillment from having a bottom at the end of the scene be like, oh my God, that was fantastic. I loved it. It was really what I needed. That really fills my cup, so to speak. And so I think that's the very feminine side of it that it merges really well for me to be able to include both of that sides. I never think about having masculine energy because I'm so comfortable in my femininity. And I think feminine energy is also kick ass because we can do a lot of shit that
Yeah.
masculine energy just can't do. But I think for me, when I'm topping, it's definitely a blend of the two.
Do you ever feel out of balance? Are there times when you're leaning too much into the masculine or the feminine in your kink play, or do you always feel pretty balanced?
Be balanced. I mean, depending upon the scene, it's not always 50-50. Like if I'm doing a sadistic scene, probably leaning more toward the masculine energy than the feminine energy. But if I'm doing a sensual scene, then I'm probably leaning more toward the feminine side, right? You got to be flexible when you do this because even if you're playing with the same person every time, things are going to be different that day. Maybe you're more tired. Maybe you've had a shit week and you have a different need from the scene. Or maybe you're in a great mood and you're celebrating and you want this happy, joyful scene. So you have to be flexible
Mm.
to change up at a moment's notice. And the joke is I'm a Virgo, I like to plan. So I have plan A through like Q. And I'm ready to just pull out the next plan for whatever I need. Like when I had to when my friend ended up our playful fun scene ended up being a cathartic scene. So you just got to be flexible. If you go into scenes going, this is what's going to happen, this is what we're going to do, end of story, it's not going to be a successful scene at all.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I had myself and that I saw a lot of people have in the kink scene, especially when you go to a big convention. The saying is you don't get the camp or the convention that you want, you get the one that you need because you can never plan out. And even if you set some goal, it's not going to look exactly how you planned it. Do you
Yeah,
have
that just
some
happened. I was at a convention last weekend and it didn't go the same way my normal conventions go. Normally I get there and I'm just like the Energizer Bunny till the end. I was sick that weekend. I had a cold and a nasty cough. And my roommate also was unwell. And we literally one day, we just, because I was teaching, so I had to have enough energy to teach. We ended up, after I was teaching, we went back to the room and we stayed. And we did not go to the dungeon that night and we stayed in. And we kind of looked at each other and we said, you know what? We need to redefine what success is. We need to redefine what a successful convention is for us. And we sat there and we talked about it and we figured out all the things like we had gone into it, not necessarily feeling well, but we did all these other things. And I connected with people in my classes and they came to me and gave me great feedback and appreciation and praise. And so I had to just redefine success. And I think that's really important in happiness, right? If you can redefine what success means, you're not going to be disappointed as much.
Yeah, not being attached to outcomes too. I think that was something that I saw, well, in the kink scene and outside of the kink scene. If you are so attached to some specific kind of outcome that you're just setting yourself up for a disappointment. But if you get into a flow and are open to whatever beautiful things the universe can bring us, I think it leads to a much happier life in general. Do you have some standout moments that have brought you an immense amount of joy? in the kink scene?
There's so many. I recognize I'm very blessed and very fortunate. I have really found a place. I have a large group of friends, some of them who are willing to do crazy shit with me, and I love it. I think for me, really the standout moments have been like when I finished a scene and we're just giggling and laughing, or for the longest time, I was doing needles and blood play kind of stuff with one person. They left the scene and the area, and I had nobody else to do it with. And slowly, people started asking me questions, and I ended up having a party where we did blood play for a lot of people who'd never done it before, and now they're hooked. And I'm like, that joy that I brought that to them that's a standout moment for me. The amount of people who are like, oh my God, I need to do this again. This is fantastic. Having people tell me that, coming to my classes and having people say, oh my God, your classes made such a difference in my life. With the podcast, we get a lot of amazing letters from people telling us we helped them. Like those for me, they're all standouts. If like I had to just pick one thing, my mind would blow because there's honestly too many. The fact that I get to do this, what I love doing, and that I'm helping people when I'm doing it, like that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think the undercurrent there is just bringing joy to people's lives. We don't have enough joy. We don't have enough fun. And no matter
Not
which
right now,
ways you
don't.
find it, yeah, yeah. It is such a gift and an honor, I think, to be able to provide that to people. What are you looking forward to in next year? We're almost done with 2025, which I don't know for you, but it's been quite a year. A lot of people have described it as a roller coaster. How was 2025 for you? How are you feeling about 2026?
2025 was an interesting year because personally and professionally, for me, it was a really, really good year. But then the world was a dumpster fire.
Mhm.
And I had friends who were hurt by it, friends who lost their jobs or when the government shut down, my trans friends who were losing rights, and my gay friends who were worried if their marriage was going to still exist. And so it was hard balancing all the joyful stuff that was happening for me. Pink Kink was doing fantastically well. I had a lot of opportunities to teach. I got to meet amazing people. I was learning and growing as a top and getting to do more stuff. So all of that was fantastic. But I almost felt like I had to kind of temper my excitement because of everything else that was happening. So for 2026, I'm hoping that somebody puts out this dumpster fire and things get better. But I also, I've got a lot of plans for Pink Kink that I am super excited about. We are changing our logo. We are changing our tagline. Our tagline used to be level up your kink education. But I always felt like that wasn't exactly what my mission was with Pink Kink and my goal. So our new tagline is going to be empowerment through education because
Love
I
that.
feel the more education people have, they're empowered. And I've really kind of made it a mission, especially to empower bottoms and submissives with that education so that they are not relying fully on their tops and doms to tell them what to do and they can more advocate for themselves. So that's very exciting. And then through that, I'm going to be teaching at Dark Odyssey Winter Fire again, which is fantastic. And I just have a lot of different opportunities. I want to write some more classes. I'm currently in the middle of writing 3 different books, and I need to actually sit down and finish one and stop kind of going back and forth, or I'll never get them done. So that's some of my goals for this year is at least to get one of them done. In 2025, I had my first published books. They were coloring books.
Wow.
So that was exciting because if you go onto Amazon and you look up Princess Rara, I show up. My stuff shows up. And that's the oddest thing, but it blows my mind. Like, oh my God,
Wait,
you
did
can
you
look me
do
up on Amazon.
you did the art in it and everything? You created the whole coloring book?
I did. Yeah, I did. There's one
Wow.
specifically for littles. So it's unicorn affirmations. So it's really cute. It's like things like, I am sparkly. I deserve rainbow love. Like that kind of stuff with
Uh-huh.
cute unicorns. And then the other one is, I forget what I called it, but it's a stress relieving one. So, like, you'll have different artwork, and then it'll say, like, "Fuck this shit" on it, like, different things just to relieve stress. I have one in the works that's a brat one. Like, so I have all these projects. I'm really determined to at least get 1 or 2 of them done in 2026. But I wanna kind of go through and figure out my classes and see if there's other areas that I can teach in that maybe we need more education in. I am working on I really want to have a virtual BDSM 101 kind of one-day virtual conference. So, I'd like to get that in the works where we'll have things like negotiation and consent and, aftercare and stuff and all of that discussed for people who are just starting. That's the
That would be
beautiful thing
amazing,
about,
actually.
it's one of the good things that came out of COVID is all this
Right.
virtual stuff we can do now. Zoom is a godsend, and being able to offer all these classes to people who don't live anywhere close to a dungeon, or maybe they've got kids and they can't do stuff when the kids are around. And so being able to do virtual classes, or on our Etsy shop, we have video on demand classes. So you can watch them at whatever pace or time works for you. I want to just take advantage of technology to really help educate.
And I was going to ask about a book. What are the topics of the 3 books that you've been working on?
So one is it's kind of like a 101 book.
Mhm.
One is for brats. It's called it's ethical brats. And I honestly am blanking right now on what the third one is, but I know it's there. It'll come to me eventually. I bet if I look it up, I'll remember what it is. Because I really sadly, my brain is I may not look 60, but my brain and memory is definitely acting like a 60-year-old.
Even when I was 20, I had brain flubs like that. So I don't think that's an
I try
age
to
thing.
pretend it's because our brains are like computers and there's only so much memory space. So in order to make
Exactly.
room for new stuff, you gotta throw out the other stuff,
But then there are those things that stay, like my best friend's phone number from when I was 5. It's still there.
right?
Totally
Strange,
unnecessary.
strange things. Oh, I know it now. I know what it was. It's more of a workbook for dominance.
Yeah.
And then after I finally get that one out, I'll work on one for submissives.
Sounds so needed, really. And what I love about the kink scene too is that people are open to learning and growing, and this kind of education is really needed and desired amongst people.
If first of all, if you stop learning, you might as well die because what's the fun in it? But people are very good, at least the people I've met, are really good about understanding. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing something, there's always new stuff to learn, and there's always ways to be better. Whether what you're
Mhm.
learning is more creative ways to do stuff or learning safer ways to do stuff, better ways to maybe read body language or better ways to communicate. The people who I run into who maybe don't think they have anything to learn tend to get isolated very fast because nobody will play with them. But we have classes. I mean, I'll go to Dark Odyssey Winter Fire. I'm going to teach 2 classes, but I'm also going to take classes because I want to learn too. I don't want to just stop learning.
Yeah, that's what life is about, learning and growing. Is there any one, I know there's probably a ton of advice that you could give, but is there one piece of advice you could give somebody who's been listening to this conversation and who's thinking about possibly checking out the kink scene? Where might somebody start?
I would really start with educating yourself exactly what it is. So the more that you learn about what's out there, then you can start to figure out if it's something you want to do. And from there, then I would start with going to munches if hopefully you can find one in your area because they're no pressure. It's usually either dinner or lunch or just hanging out at a bar where you can meet and talk to other kinksters. And nobody's playing because there's no dungeon, everything. You're coming in just your jeans and t-shirt if you want, and you can talk to people and find out about what's available in your area and start from there. I think if I had to give one big important piece of advice for people to listen to, it's to trust your guts and instinct. If somebody you meet seems off, accept that they're off.
Mhm.
If something feels wrong, accept that it's wrong. I fell into that trap with my first partner. When I would bring up concerns, I got told a lot, you just don't understand, you're new. And my gut knew something was off. and I should have listened to it. And so I tell people, listen to it. If the minute you have to ask somebody, is this normal? You know the answer.
Yeah,
And
even
so
if you're
don't be
completely
afraid.
unfamiliar.
Even if you're brand new to the lifestyle, you have, you've had life lessons. Listen to your gut.
100%. And I would just tack on to that too. Listen to your gut, even if the person that is doing the thing that is triggering you, that's giving you that sense that this is not right, even if that person is the most well-known dom in the world or so well-known in the scene, if your gut is telling you to stop, stop. No one's going to get mad at you for doing that. Just, yeah, 100% always listen to your gut. And I think that was my training background for listening to my intuition really was being in those situations and sensing people and learning how to find my voice. I love that you are working with submissives in particular about that because you don't have to be quiet as a submissive.
Not at all. In fact, if you have a dom who's telling you that, right, you can't say no, or I get to decide all this, those are walking, talking red flags, and run away from them. As I tell people, a DS dynamic is still a relationship. And in a relationship, both people get a say. And both people need to have their needs and wants met, and they're not happy. In a scene, it's the same thing, right? It needs to be about both partners. Now, sometimes maybe one partner will give a little bit more. I had a friend that I played with all the time, and I used to say our scenes went one of three ways. Either I'd say to her, I had a really shitty week this week, and I need you to beat the fucking crap out of me so I can get it all out. Or she said to me, I had a really shitty week this week. I need to beat the crap out of you and get it out of me. And then, of course, the third time where we just get together and go, oh, let's just do this. This is fun. And so it's not always going to be 50-50, but when there's that communication, and she and I were friends and had played together so many times, there was such a connection and there was a basis of trust, so that even if she said to me, I need to beat the crap out of you, I wasn't worried that she was literally going to beat the crap out of me, or that she was going to ignore my safe words or ignore my limits. Like, that was still going to happen. We just usually meant I didn't get as much of a warm up, and we started going harder earlier. But it just should never be one-sided. It should never be one-sided. And if a dom or top is telling you, I'm in charge, you have to do what I want, the answer to that should always be, no, actually, no, I don't, and walk away.
There are dangerous things. You are running on the edge of safety, not only physically, but emotionally. And so being super in tune with your intuition and listening to your gut is really, I agree, the most important thing. And that transfers over into life as well. I think that if we all did that more often, we would have happier, healthier relationships and just better lives in general.
Yeah, I think women in particular, we've kind of been conditioned to question ourselves. When our gut's telling us something, we kind of question, oh, am I being oversensitive? Am I being paranoid? And that's hard to get past. That's really hard to get past. But I think it's something we should all work on, as, make that just a goal. Just start listening to your instincts a little bit more.
And whether you are more on the side of being a top or a bottom or dominant or submissive, I think women, that feminine energy is so incredibly powerful. And I think our voices are so needed right now in all areas of the world. And so, just thank you so much for being you, Rara, and being the powerful, badass goddess princess that you are.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I could talk about kink all day, every day, which I joke is why I started a podcast. So I could.
Exactly. Yes, I'm so excited to listen to more of the podcast, and that will be in the show notes for anyone who wants to find Pink Kink. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Goddess in Training. I hope something in this episode stirred your knowing or softened your heart. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it, or leave a review or comment to help others find us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to hear more conversations like this, please consider supporting Goddess in Training on Patreon. For more tools and offerings to deepen your intuition practice, visit goddessintraining.online. You can also join the Scroll of Sashat on Substack for twice-weekly stories of how I followed my intuition. The music for Goddess in Training is Madre Ayahuasca by Arkawa, and you can find more of his music in the link to his website in the show notes. Remember, your intuition is not a mystery, it's a memory. Keep listening.
Resplandor de fuego, estrellita, tabaco santo, fuerza de rapel, soplo de luz, soplo encantado, viajecito, bendición del cielo, fortaleza, tigrecito de la selva, madre haya